Anime is doomed if things do not change. That is the words from the director of Code Geass's anime. Quite a bold statement, and quite a thing to say, honestly, especially when anime is kind of surging in popularity, it's kind of reaching new heights of revenue stream, and it's honestly becoming one of the biggest forms of entertainment around the world. So hearing someone like the director of Code Geass say that anime is done for if things do not change and only adaptations remain is pretty insane stuff. So we're going to get into this, we're going to read this article, and then we're going to discuss kind of what's going on here and why someone that helped create and work on the Code Geass anime would even say something like this. So let's begin. If only adaptations remain, Japanese anime will be done for, says Code Geass series director. Goro, best known as the director of the acclaimed Code Geass Lelouch the Rebellion anime series, recently celebrated the premiere of his new feature-length film, Paris ni Saku Itole. Probably butchered that, forgive me. Coming out in Japanese theaters on March 13th, the film is an original anime-only IP, much like Code Geass. Talking to Tokyo Shimbun, Taniguchi says he is very peculiar about creating and leaving behind anime works that are not adaptations of existing material, as it's something he considers important for the industry's survival. Over the last few years, adaptations have understandably become the norm because they're easier to secure a profit on, he says. But I believe that if left with nothing but adaptations, Japanese animation will be done for. This is the statement that he's making, so let's get into why he's actually saying that. According to Taniguchi, the shift to adaptation source material like manga and light novels has changed the role and required skills of creators in the anime industry. To illustrate, he compares anime to music, saying creatives who work on adaptations act more like arrangers rather than composers or songwriters. While Taniguchi does not denounce the production of adaptations itself, he warns that should anime creators, including himself, neglect to engage in the composing side of things, meaning creating anime from scratch, they'll gradually lose their way and become more subcontractors to the source material. And then this is what he went on to say, more of a statement. I believe that when the wave of adaptations eventually subside, other works must remain intact. It is precisely because of diversity that the surviving works of each era become the mainstream of the next. I believe this is the strength of Japanese animation. For that very reason, I want to leave behind original titles rather than the proliferation of anime adaptations itself. It seems Taniguchi is mainly frustrated with how original anime have dwindled rather than remain as an alternative style production that coexist with adaptation. With his new film, which tells the story of two girls who travel from Japan to Paris during World War I, Taniguchi aims to resonate with a wide audience and says he has deliberately avoided using isekai, OP skill tropes, or even mecha and sci-fi themes to do so. So basically, he is avoiding the very common cliche tropes and stuff you see kind of saturated in the anime and manga industry, and he wants to do something that's very much different than what you would normally see. Now, obviously, there's a lot to take away from what is being said here in this article, and so let's get into kind of to the crux of the issue. So Taniguchi is a director that helped work on the anime original series Code Geass. For those that don't know, yes, Code Geass is an anime original series that was created, and it's obviously a cult classic. It's very famous, and to this very day, people still talk about it almost constantly. Probably there's conversations about it daily, because it is such a massively popular series. Even those that were not like anime fans, for instance, even talk about Code Geass because it's just that iconic. Either they talk about just the eye powers, they talk about how cool Lelouch is, they talk about maybe the fan service stuff, maybe they talk about the Pizza Hut sponsorship, maybe they talk about the mechs, whatever it may be. Code Geass is a very talked about anime. It is something that has stood the test of time and is still very significant to this very day. And obviously, what Taniguchi is trying to say here is that it's an anime original that obviously stands out amongst anime. And another series that is also anime original that stands tall to this very day is Neon Genesis and also Gurren Lagann. For those that don't know, yeah, those anime are also anime original. They are completely original, were not based on a manga, they were created from the very beginning as an anime series, and eventually there was manga adaptations and stuff that came out, but it strictly started as an anime adaptation. And more or less, Taniguchi is saying that if they focus on just anime adaptations, and focus on just like adapting manga or light novels into anime, they lose that sense of like creating their own works and composing, like he said. They are more or less just, you know, arranging the manga panels, coloring stuff in, and then there you go. They're animating it. They're not really bringing a new story to life and kind of diving into some of the things that has made anime unique for many, many decades prior to where we're at right now. For example, we gotta look at, like, for instance, Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli has made a lot of iconic movies over the years that many will recognize. Spirited Away is a very good one, and obviously when you look at stuff like that, it's clear that, yeah, there is a lack of anime originals, and I have noticed this, and this isn't the first time I've even talked about this subject. I talked about the subject maybe 5 years ago, but, like, it has been very apparent, especially in the last decade, that anime originals have slowly dwindled and died off. And there's a lot of reasons for that, besides obviously the explosion of anime adaptations like JJK, Chainsaw Man, Demon Slayer, and stuff like that. There's other reasons why that is. First off, we gotta talk about anime originals to begin with. Obviously, anime originals is basically a new IP. It's something completely new, something that doesn't have a pre-existing story, lore, or fan base. It is something that is just starting off as is, and the only way you could even know about it is if you actively follow the studio, you see a trailer for it, and there you go, and you're trying to discover anime. It's not something that will have a pre-established fan base. And this is kind of where Studio Trigger, for instance, really excelled as a studio for a very long time, and also Gainax as well. For those that don't know, Studio Trigger typically likes to make anime originals. They for instance, Kill la Kill is a very good example, Panty and Stalking is a very good example, Kiz Naiver is a very good example. They have made series that are anime original that many will recognize. And the reason why people watch these series and why they're so popular is because Studio Trigger has made a name for themselves as creating new works, not adapting manga, just creating stuff from scratch. And that's something that people have grown fond of. It's kind of like a game studio. Think of it like that. For instance, like, when you think of a game company that makes a game or something, like FromSoft. FromSoft is a very good example. They make, like, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and stuff. Obviously, you're looking forward to their next game. You're looking forward to what they're going to create and churn out, because obviously, they make some very good shit. And so, when you think about, like, you know, Studio Trigger and the anime they've created over the past decade and a half, then many people are fans that will follow them to their next anime, because they have a good track record of making very good anime originals. And so, it obviously what I'm saying here is anime originals are very popular, and they can clearly stand out. And honestly, some of the most standout series that are still talked about to this very day is actually anime original stuff. Think about it. Kill la Kill. I mean, we have Gurren Lagann, Code Geass, Neon Genesis. You get the point. They are very significant series that are still talked about, despite being anime original at the time when they came out. So, why is it dying off? Or why is there a lack of, for instance, anime originals? Well, that is a very easy one to really say. For one, we gotta look at two different reasons, two different causes. First off, anime originals are a risk. And the reason why I say that they're quite the risk is because there is no fan base for it. When these creators at animation studios, they work on this anime and they put a lot of resources and time into it to kind of storyboard it and figure out where they want to take the story. The point of the matter is that there is no fan base that will actively engage with it. They have to actually get people engaged to build a fan base while watching the anime. And so it is a very significant risk, and that is why adaptations are more sought after and easier to do, because obviously you can easily kind of, like, let's look at, JJK, for instance. Jujutsu Kaisen had a massive fan base for the manga, and so when you incorporate a really good anime adaptation, the fan base of the manga shifts over to the anime to watch it, and so they get an overlap. They get already automatic watchers just because of the manga readers. But with an anime original, that is not the case. There is not a pre-existing established fan base that will instantly watch it. So they have to engage people to even want to engage with it to begin with. But on top of that, despite the fan base and stuff like that, you also got to remember that there is no possibility of spoilers. You don't know what's going to happen, and so the story is kind of on the rails where you're wondering if it's going to be good or not. And a lot of times when I have watched anime originals over the years, they typically start off very solid, and then they fall flat on their face. They're absolute dog shit. I'm just gonna be blunt. There is a lot of anime originals that I have watched that just are incredible first episodes, incredible first halves, honestly. And then you get to the second half and it collapses in, and it is just so terrible. And I feel like this is a big reason why doing anime originals is really not something that is important for, studios anymore, is because the risk and just, like, the writing capabilities, there's probably just not writers that are as gifted to do, for instance, anime originals anymore. Mainly, if you're going to want to write something, just write a manga, write a light novel, and then get it adapted into an anime. That's probably what a lot of people think about when they're working or wanting to write on something. So I feel like anime originals are slowly dying off and becoming kind of a lost art. And I do agree that, Taniguchi is kind of being honest here. He's like one of the core essences that have defined anime over the decades is definitely dissipating, and I feel like his words basically saying anime is done for is a little bit extreme. I do think that, but I do think that it is a canary in a coal mine, and it's kind of indication of the lack of like what's the proper word here? It's the lack of innovation, or the lack of trying to be unique and different. For instance, you have all these studios now playing the safe route, playing it very safe with adaptations, instead of taking risk and doing something that, could obviously be a smashing success. For example, in this day and age right now, where we're at when it comes to anime, something like Code Geass, something like Gurren Lagann, something like Neon Genesis, or Kill la Kill, for example, might not ever exist. Because obviously, adapting or making anime originals is not really worthwhile when you can easily just do an anime adaptation from a very popular manga. So that is a big point. A lot of these classics that we love today might not exist in this environment. They would not be created because of the environment we have, despite obviously seeing many different pieces of evidence that they are very successful. So, yeah, I do think that there is some words to acknowledge here from the director and what they're trying to say. And like I said, I feel like it is a canary in a coal mine and leading to a greater issue in the future. For instance, a domino effect that can shift into, like, the loss of identity for anime, the loss of, like, for instance, innovation and being able to be unique or stand out or be able to, take risk with the actual industry itself. And when you look at, like, for instance, gaming and, like, for instance, movies in the West, a lot of these different companies don't like to take risks. For instance, they'll make a standard slot game that is just the same thing you've seen over and over again. Like, let's look at High Guard. High Guard's a very good example. Concord, you see these same things over and over again. They're churned out, they're the same thing, they play it very safe, or they try to appeal to a certain modern audience, and they just don't do so well. And obviously, that's the reason why this happens, is because these companies want to keep it safe. And the reason why people shifted over to, like, for instance, playing like Dark Souls and Elden Ring is because obviously FromSoft wants to push the mold. They try to do different stuff and be unique or innovate upon their stuff, and that is why, like, FromSoft has done just so well with their games. And the same can be said for the movie industry. Movie industries are very safe, they follow standard trends, and they don't like to deviate from what is expected, because obviously they want to do what is going to sell instantly instead of taking a risk that might be a smashing success. So that's being kind of incorporated into the anime industry and what's currently going on. So yeah, honestly, pretty interesting article, I have to say. Like, I feel like this is a very important video to discuss, like, or a very important topic to discuss, and this is why I'm making this video, because I feel like it's important, because it is honestly a true statement. Like, Japan's anime is doomed if something isn't done. I do think its identity is at risk, and it will come gradually, and it has been gradually happening for a decade now at this point. But, I will leave it at that. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. It does help out a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. Be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.